Storytelling 2.0. My name is Rituparna Ghosh and I'm a storyteller, trainer, consultant and coach at Your Story Bag. ABC of Storytelling 2.0 is an open source learning resource which I have designed to help you tell better stories every single day in your business, in your work and in your life. This is the 20th episode, which means there are more than 200 hours of storytelling learning resources that I have created for you. It's all available on my YouTube channel and on our learning portal on Your Story Bag. So go ahead, log in and watch all the episodes so far, because each of them carries tips, tricks, techniques and secrets that have been designed and presented just for you, no matter who you are. Whether you are a trainer, a consultant, a coach, you're somebody working in sales, marketing, communications, branding, you are a business leader, a manager, you're anyone who is running your own business or is working with others who are creating their own, whether you're in a corporate or a not-for-profit. ABC of Storytelling 2.0 is a powerful tool, a powerful resource that will infuse you with several ideas about stories and how they work in the world today. So go ahead and make the best use of it. We are on the letter U, so let's dive right in. There's a lot of work that goes behind finding a perfect story to tell. So I particularly look for stories that can be used in multiple situations to convey multiple ideas or to stoke multiple ideas and thoughts and feelings and emotions in multiple different audiences. That's where I recommend you go after the utility of a story. Stories are naturally multidimensional, which means that there are different ways to interpret a story, there are different meanings, there are different perspectives that you can draw out of a story. But if you were to put stories together in your story bag, I would recommend that you find stories that can be told, retold, presented to different audiences for different things, or maybe the same audience but for different objectives. Well, let me give you an example. So there's a story that I tell everyone about how Max flew out of my head. Now I'm not going to tell that story, but it's in very crisp ways I'll say that this is a story that goes back to grade 3 of when a maths teacher on the first day of grade 3 slapped my face and actually ripped my notebook open and threw it out of the window. And when she did that in that particular moment, maths just literally almost flew out of my head, and I lived my entire life with this guilt and this shame and this embarrassment and this feeling that I'm not good in that subject. And it changed the course of my life and everything that I did in my academic life and even after it. Now I use the story very intelligently, I think so, in different situations. For example, when I work with children, I talk to them about adults. I talk to them that how adults do things, and sometimes we think we're doing it innocently, we're trying to instill fears, and where have we wronged them. So depending on the age group of the child, it works brilliantly when children have come forth and said when adults have wronged them. I use this story with teachers to talk about how do you label a child when they are struggling to do a subject. How do you assess whether the child is afraid of the subject or they are really weak, and what can you do to help them overcome the fear or overcome the weakness that there is. So this story opens up that discussion with educators. With parents or adults, I use this story to talk about emotions and scars which have happened in their life when they were small, and how it has made them be where they are today, the changes or the impact that those strong emotions have had in their life and their personality, and what happens when an adult doesn't spot this in their child. So we talk about all of this in many multiple ways. So you see, one story, but the way I use it for different audiences to have different kind of conversations, to stoke different ideas, to get them to converse, talk, share, and interact with one another around the same story. Makes this story very, very useful for me. So go and find stories which have multiple utilities. You can use it in multiple situations, and that makes it a valuable story to put into your story bag and to tell it every single time that you choose to tell it. A story works in a mysterious way. Even after 17 years as a storyteller, I cannot point my finger and tell you, I cannot predict how will a particular story impact a listener. I mean, when we talk about stories, when we gather stories, when we put stories together for a certain objective, we can predict what are the triggers. We know what are the likely triggers that's going to induce some kind of an emotion, some kind of a reaction from one's listeners or audience. But no one can actually predict whether a story will actually do what you're intending to do. You can measure the impact after the story is being told, but you cannot predict what will that be in finite terms. But it's never advisable to underestimate a story. You cannot estimate it, right? But you should never underestimate a story. What can storytelling do in the world today? Well, we are still exploring that. And particularly us at Your Story Bag, we are exploring the multiple uses of stories. So we are walking along the story path. We are making discoveries every single day. We are trying to apply story science, story art in various dimensions of work and business and life. And we're trying to see what can stories solve. But never ever have I underestimated the power of a story. A story may not work for a particular listener or a particular audience because it may not be the kind of story that that listener or the audience is looking for. But it does not mean that the perfect story, the right story, does not exist in the universe. So if a story fails, and that's my tip to you, if a story fails, don't underestimate it, don't doubt it, don't doubt the efficacy of a story, but go ahead and find a better narrative, because that's the narrative that is going to click with your listener, your audience, and is going to push them, nudge them, poke, prod, provoke them into thinking the way you want them to think, not in the manipulative way, but perhaps in the action-oriented way. And that's the power of a good story. Never underestimate the power of a good story. In fact, you should estimate that a good story told well at the right time, at the right place, for the right purpose will actually make people's lives better. One of the greatest tragedies of life is that there are many stories that are left untold. If you're working in an organization, whether you're leading it or you're working in one, think of the number of stories that you're creating every single day. If these stories are not retrieved, gathered, curated, archived, documented, then these stories are worthless in some time. Think of the innumerable stories that have lived through your employees, through the iconic leaders that your organization may have had, through the everyday workings, the innovations, the inventions, the problems that your team or your organization would have solved, the challenges that the organization has met, and the kind of impulses that have made people rise up and meet a solution or find one. All of these stories, if they're not documented, when they're happening, they are forgotten. And after a period of time, it's very, very difficult to retrieve these stories, to recall these stories, because life happens to us. New stories happen to us. So the old ones, the ones which have not been told, the ones which have not been documented, are forgotten. Think of the innumerable stories that you're living today. These are the stories. If you don't tell them, they are forgotten. And after a period of time, they remain untold. At Your Story Bag, we are running an entire year's campaign called 365 Days, 365 Stories. And each day, I share a prompt, a story prompt that will make you reflect about your journey, your personal journey, one that you have lived or one that you have witnessed. And it is designed to help you retrieve, recall, gather those elements, rewrite, relive, and retell that story. It's important to tell your stories, otherwise they are forgotten. And these stories carry those valuable lessons of life, that valuable wisdom, the knowledge. Remember, storytelling is the world's oldest form of sharing wisdom. If you're not gathering these stories from your life, from your organization, from other people around you, these stories remain untold and they are forgotten. So go ahead, make haste, gather the stories that are in your environment, in your business, in your life, in your organization, wherever you are, whatever you do, gather these stories, get somebody to tell them, archive them. Don't tell me, nobody told you. That's all we have time for this week on ABC of Storytelling 2.0. Remember what I said at the beginning of this episode, that this is a resource that I put together just for you. So no matter who you are, where you are, what you do, please go ahead and dive into ABC of Storytelling 2.0 to find tips, tricks, techniques, and secrets that will help you tell better stories every single day. And if you get stuck with the story, you can go ahead and book a discovery call with me. I am right here, going nowhere, and I'm here to help you find the best story that you can tell for any particular purpose. So until the next letter, happy storytelling.